If you don't know what's going to happen in the next stage of your life or the next chapter of your life, it's harder to let go of this chapter. It's harder to plan in terms of what you should do with a business and how to actually transition it effectively if you don't know what's going to happen next. Okay, so let's chat about letting go of a business. Because as much as we think it's easy to build a great business and then sell it, it's not always that easy because that business becomes a baby. It becomes something that you started from ground up. You've put all your blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then one day you have to let it go. And it's just like having a child, right? And it can be even more challenging than having a child because your business may have hundreds of employees or tens of employees or maybe even thousands of employees that you have now brought under the umbrella of your family. And letting go of your business means that you have to let go of taking care of them as well. And this is very common, especially when it comes to family business, whether it's selling the family business or transitioning the family business over to the next generation. It's not always that easy. There's an assumption for many people that it's going to be easy to move on to that next stage. And what we notice is that when people come closer to that stage, when people are, let's just say 40s, 50s, 60s, however old they are when it comes to transitioning out, it's a tougher situation than they originally thought. And there's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of procrastination. Some people, I'm going to say the norm is not for people to let go. The norm is for people to hang on. Those individuals who can actually jump out easy and go from one business to the next, well, I call them the true entrepreneurs because entrepreneurship, from my perspective, is someone who can build a business, sell it, build the next business, sell it, build the next business and sell it. And that is in their DNA. That's what they are born to do. That's what they are driven to do. And not everybody is driven to do that. For example, myself, I'm not driven to build businesses to sell all the time. That's not my nature. That's not my DNA. Do I help others do that? Yes, absolutely. But it's not my inherent, you can say, personality trait to be able to do that because I get tied to my business. And every time I think about selling, well, what am I going to do after? It's a challenging conversation within my own head. And so I don't blame anybody for having those challenges, especially when someone has worked in a business for decades and has built it from ground up. And now, let's just say there's a gentleman that is in his 50s or 60s that is coming up against this decision or coming up to a decision. When I say against a decision, that's how a lot of people feel, is that they're coming up against this brick wall and they don't know what to do with it. But you are coming up to a decision to say, what do you do with this business? Do you sell it? Do you transition it to the next generation? And it can become very difficult. One of the common conversations that we have with individuals who are close to that stage is, okay, where's the plan? Do you have a plan? Do you have a transition plan? Do you have an exit plan? Do you have a succession plan? What does that look like? And a lot of the times we get this humming and hawing. No, we thought about it. We know we need to do it, but we haven't done it. And when we get down to the root of it, the core cause of that is because they don't know what to do next. And so this whole, you can say, episode is about what do you do to be able to overcome that hurdle? Because you need to overcome that hurdle and actually move forward because you can't be stuck to your business forever. Actually, that's what ends up happening in some cases, and more than I'd like to say, where individuals hang on too long and then the business starts to fall short, or it's slowing in growth, or it doesn't have that same momentum because you are no longer that passionate about it. You are holding on to it because you don't know what else to do. And if you find yourself in this situation, that's okay. This is very common. But you need to move on to the next thing in your life. That is step number one, is figure out what your next purpose in life is or what your next project is going to be. Very, very important. If you don't know what's going to happen in the next stage of your life or the next chapter of your life, it's harder to let go of this chapter. It's harder to plan in terms of what you should do with a business and how to actually transition it effectively if you don't know what's going to happen next. And you can make all these excuses internally to avoid having to make a decision or come up with a plan, but that's not going to change your situation for the better. So my recommendation is always to plan for the future, always to think about what's going to happen next, because when you know what's going to happen next, you can actually build this business more effectively as well. if that's what you're planning on doing, is continue to grow it before you transition to the next stage. And that allows you to actually do it effectively and timely. And if you're going to sell it, get a higher valuation. If you're going to transition it, you're going to be able to do it more successfully to the next generation or sell it off to your employees. So know what you're going to do next. I know it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but that's very important, because as soon as you know what you're going to do next and then do this, which is part 2, is set a goal for yourself. So if you're going to go to the next stage of your life and say, well, I'm going to go golfing for, I'm going to go on the range 3 times a week. Well, then set a goal for that. Not only a goal in terms of how often you're going to do it, but what kind of score you want to have, who you want to go golfing with. Maybe you want to travel the world and go golfing. When you have this in place, that's going to set you up for success. And with any goal, you have to make sure that there's a deadline. It doesn't have to be an exact deadline, but I do recommend that the more exact it is, the more definitive it is, the better the plan is going to be for you to be able to transition your business. If you have this estimated date, and the window is, let's just say 2 years. Well, I'm going to retire between 2025 and 2027. Your plan is going to be wishy-washy as well, because 2 years in business can make a lot of difference. But if you say by this date, September of 2025, you're going to be transitioned out and you're going to have this goal working on this project, guess what? Now you're going to have a plan to work towards. As soon as you have a plan, you have more clarity, which leads to more control, which leads to more confidence, which leads to more certainty. And as soon as you have more certainty, you can actually do things more effectively. Your business is going to be better off. You're going to be better off. Your employees are going to be better off. Your spouse and your family is going to be better off when you know what you're going to do next. So if you are humming and hawing in terms of what you are going to do with your business, then you need to take a look and know what you're going to do after you are out of the business, because that's going to give you some clarity in terms of how long you have and possibly what you need to do to be able to get to that point where you can actually exit out effectively. So if you put those things or elements into place, your next chapter, your goal, and your deadline, you're far more likely to be successful when it comes to moving to the next stage